Hey, I'm Heather Carlucci, psychic medium and medical intuitive, and this is my first shot at a video. When I get the guts, I'll probably do it live on Facebook. I do have some questions from people who follow me on social media, so I'll be getting to those. But first and foremost, an introduction. As a psychic medium, I can hear, see, and feel the spirits that come with you. It's called clairaudient, clairvoyant, and clairsentient. Some psychics do one, some who do two, some who do three. I do all three. I'm picking up that there's sometimes some other things that I do too. I'm not sure what they are, but when it comes to me, it comes to me. And one of my specialties, which I knew first and foremost when I was growing up, was that I am a medical intuitive, which along with business and money seems to be my strongest gift. I can see and feel, often in my own body, what's going on in the person I'm reading. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about medical things. Just as a start, I did a post yesterday on Instagram that ended up being kind of popular, and I got a lot of private messages about it because I was saying that I have a new favorite bone. And when you're a medical intuitive, very often, though I don't have medical training per se, or I don't sit there with my nose in medical books all the time, though I do a lot of research, because I hear things, I hear names of body parts, I hear names of medications, very often I hear names of diseases, and I will go and I'll try and find out what that is. I do not diagnose in any way, but what I try to do is work with the client, and very often, and most recently, I would say more open-minded, a bit more doctors, educated doctors in the realm of the metaphysical, to help get to a diagnosis when a diagnosis isn't coming through the most traditional ways. And I'll get to that as well in my videos. But one of the things, I was so excited the other day, I was actually working with one of these doctors, and I was on her table, and I was having a lot of I felt off kilter. And she likes to sort of work with me because as a medium and somebody who works with everybody else's energy all the time, I tend to take it in physically. So for me, she says it's like going to school again, because she and I can sort of talk a little bit more medically, and I can tell her what I'm feeling and what's working and what's not. So when she was dealing with me, she was talking about how much stress and energy has been stored in my face. You don't usually hear that. It's often gut, it's often colon, we have a whole intestinal thing, heart, but it's not uncommon actually, but it was really, my stress was stored in my face. And it did feel like something was going on, but there were so many things going on. You know what it's like in this day and age. We have so many stresses, and of course, I see clients and I take on a lot of that energy. I have to be very careful with myself about such things. But she said, it's fascinating. Your sphenoid bone is a little bit out of whack, and that can change a lot of things for you. And she does a lot of body work. She also works in chiropractic work. And I said, well, what is a sphenoid bone? Because it seems to have an enormous amount of power for something I've never heard of and sounds fascinating. She said, well, it's one of the coolest looking bones, first of all. And because I'm high tech, I copied out a picture of it. And this is the sphenoid bone. Isn't it cool? For my witch people out there, I almost said women, but I know a lot of my followers are also men and they're witches, so I'm going to go with it. It looks like a bat, which is really cool, but the sphenoid bone is right behind the eyes. I'm going to talk in layman's terms. I'm not going to go ocular. I'm going to go right behind the eyes. The bottom of the wings here sit sort of right behind. I say we're on the cheekbones, I would say. The bottom wings here sit right above the upper palate of the mouth. Isn't that fascinating? It's amazing, right? So what's really interesting and made so much sense of certain things I have read, in my reading, not in a book, but actual doing readings of people, is that when it's a littlest bit out of whack, and think about it, how many times do we smack our head? Things can get out of whack very easily in our bodies. We can sneeze and throw a rib out of place, right? Somebody has a bad coughing fit, you have a lot of congestion. Congestion can also lead to knocking out even of a disc in your spine. We're far more sensitive, we're far more resilient, but we're also far more sensitive and delicate than we give our bodies credit for. But if that sphenoid sometimes is in a little bit out of whack, it can be a part of the bigger problem of depression. Now, I find that absolutely fascinating, just as somebody who loves to learn about health and what makes the body work, but also because I read people a lot, and a lot of people that come to me are sort of hoping to find a way out of depression, either for themselves, their loved ones, and we have so many things that go into what happens with a depression. We have physical ailments. We have even allergies to food can bring that on over the long term. It could be many, many, many things. You know, we have people who, we can be imbalanced chemically. So many things, PTSD, and that leads to another range of all sorts of physical ailments, which I think I'll probably get to at some other point. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but there are certain things that I always pick up and that I read that on the day-to-day can sort of help. Some of it on the bend of like nutrition, some of it a little bit more spiritual, or sometimes it's just a matter of getting on some more hands-on medical help. For this sort of thing, a great maybe surgical masseuse, somebody who you go to after surgery who really understands fascia and how things sit in the body. Or, some people don't do it, but lots of people like to go to chiropractors, and sort of because when you're out of alignment, it really throws you off. And, we don't think many times in our culture that the mind has anything to do with the body. But the mind and the body are the same thing. And if you think about it, depression, no matter how it comes or how deep it runs, or does it get cured, does it not get cured, all these things on the table always has to do with how we see the world. A depressed person cannot see outside of this disease. And no matter how someone who's not depressed is saying, well, if you only do this and you only do that, very often that does not lead to anything good. You cannot pull somebody else out of it if it's really in deep and it runs for long periods of time. It's a much bigger path to getting out of it. But it is how we see the world. And having this sort of bone, this sort of butterfly, bat-winged bone behind the eyes, really makes us think about what is it in the brain that brings on depression, why are all these things connected, and how many things that we can have going on in our life that will bring that in. Very often when I read somebody, and it can really come out of nowhere, I can be doing a reading and we can be talking about money and business and family, and then the run on health will always come in. Sometimes I start that way, sometimes it's a thing that clicks me in with somebody, which happens more often than not, because when I sit with somebody, I feel their body sometimes in mine. I will. If you have a back problem, I might feel the back problem. Something going on in the hips, I can feel it on my hip. I'll start to sort of shift and make myself feel comfortable. Why? Because then my hip hurts. It has nothing to do with the person's body language. It's just the way I'm picking up their energy. But anyway, just something to think about as my first video is about this new information. This sort of thing interests you, look it up and, educate yourself. It's your body, and this is what we're dealing with. I do have one question I'll do today from an online follower. And the question is, when I'm in the subway or somewhere crowded, do I pick up other people's energy? If I'm in a room full of strangers, do I get either picking up their physical energy, or do I see their spirits? Do I have to turn it off? And the answer is yes, I do, and I do have to turn it off. I have to be extremely, extremely careful about it, to tell you the truth. In time, I learned that I can't just walk in and just let it all happen. It's exhausting. Number one, it makes me shut down a little bit socially once I get out, very often after being in a big crowd. Like I was at the Women's March on Saturday, and you know, what is that, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. The next 2 days, sitting on the couch, that was how I had to sort of come back from that feeling of depletion. What was taught to me early on by one of my couple of very close mentors in this field was that you really have to ask the spirits to go away and leave you alone for a little while. I had great fear about that in the beginning because I feared that if I asked them to go, they would never come back, even though it was so overwhelming. Everything that I had around me, as overwhelming as it was, I didn't want it to go away. It was an interesting balance of relationship, but I do have to protect myself. I have to close myself off a little bit. Now it is very much just part of my everyday. I don't even realize I'm doing it when I walk into like a busy situation. Of course, things like the march is a much different story. I usually don't walk around with, you know, hundreds of thousands of people around me. But yes, I do, and that does happen, and I can read strangers, which made for an odd and fascinating childhood, to say the least. Anyway, I look forward to my next video. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions at all, please private message me, and I will definitely get to them. If not through private message, then I will do it in my next video. Bye-bye.